Hopefully I can open it, and if not, I'll just hope my laptop fan isn't too loud. Good God. Okay. So, hopefully it will open. And yeah.
Hi everyone, it's 1 o'clock British Standard Time here on IC Radio. I'm Jocelyn, the batter-fried mermaid in your fish and chips from the Science Media Production Masters Program, hauled ashore on the decks of Bodie McBoatface and quickly dipped in His Majesty's butter and flour and eggs and burnt to a crisp. Welcome back to Science at 1, Redux, where we bring you science, news, music, and sometimes other stuff. We've been on a 2-month hiatus, but we're back. Last term, we all made fancy radio packages, and each week I'm gonna play one for you, and sometimes even 2. Aren't you lucky? And when I can, I'll bring on some games and interviews and contributors, and maybe even some packages of my own that have to do with this week's theme. And you may be thinking, this week's theme must obviously be Valentine's Day, because it is Valentine's Day. Well, guess what? There's a twist. This week's theme is anti-Valentine's Day, the gory physiological bits that have vaguely to do with Valentine's Day. And also, we're going to talk about the Lunar New Year, because we were supposed to talk about it 2 weeks ago, and I ended up in the hospital for 15 hours. And the last time I checked, the holiday's over, but the year's still happening. Plus, more songs from the soothing voice of my dear friend Lizzie Paul, and some from Thomas Burns Scully, an extremely tall Welshman who had a pretty nice cameo in the finale of Broad City. That's all between now and probably 1:45 here on Science at 1. But first, some highlights from this weekend's news. Scientists at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill have invented an inhalable powder that could protect lungs from contracting coronavirus by reinforcing the body's mucosal layer. The powder is called spherical hydrogel inhalation for enhanced lung defense, or SHIELD. It can be taken repeatedly without affecting normal lung function. The inhalable powder microparticles are composed of gelatin and its acrylic acid and grafted with a non-toxic ester. When introduced into a moist environment, such as the respiratory tract and lungs, the particles swell and stick to the mucosal layer, making the mucus stickier. Its effects are most potent within the first 8 hours of inhalation, but within a 48-hour period, it clears from the body. It's designed to work like an invisible mask in situations where masking is difficult, such as heavy exercise. Frankly, this stuff sounds too good to be true, so this weekend, or should I say weekend, let's all do some lines of SHIELD. The Chester Zoo celebrated the birth of a critically endangered species, the dancing lemur, also called Cockerel sifaka, marking the first time a member of this species was bred in Europe. The new arrival will be clinging to his mother's belly for several weeks before riding on her back like a backpack until about 6 months old. Sounds adorable. Mike Jordan, the zoo's director of animals and plants, said the birth was a landmark moment for conservation, as these dancing lemurs are dangerously close to being wiped out completely by increasing deforestation. That's it for the news. Here's Lizzie Paul with Something I Always Knew. such beautiful sounds from a dear, dear friend. Lizzie tells me as of late that she'll have new songs later in the year as she's on Spotify and Bandcamp, so keep an eye out for them. Valentine's Day is a day full of hearts. And you know what hearts pump? Blood. Here's another way of finding your perfect match. The NHS has recently gone on Amber Alert due to blood shortages, but could a new breakthrough change how we approach blood donation? For the first time in the world, blood grown in a lab has been transfused into a person. Tara Ina McDermott investigates the possibilities of this new clinical trial and explores the causes and effects of the NHS's Amber Alert while also donating her blood for the first time.
Ticket number 110, please go to room number 4.
I'm here at the West End Donor Centre donating my blood for the first time, joining hundreds of thousands of new donors who registered to donate since the NHS declared an Amber Alert back in October. Supplies were so low that the NHS only had enough blood to last 2 days, rather than the minimum 7 days it needs. Elisa Lee, Senior Clinical Scientist of Haematological and Transfusion Sites at the Royal Marsden Hospital, saw the very serious consequences of this blood shortage on the NHS.
Elective surgeries were cancelled, so things like hip replacement surgeries, they were cancelled, which means that more blood is available in the overall stock levels, which helps cancer patients and patients with sickle cell who are very dependent on transfusions to have a high quality of life.
Sickle cell is an inherited blood disorder which inhibits the ability of red blood cells to carry oxygen. It predominantly affects people with an African or Caribbean family background and leads to lifelong chronic pain and shortened life expectancies. Ganesh Sathyanamurthy, Deputy Director of Imperial College London's Ethnicity and Health Unit, is a trustee of the Sickle Cell Society.
So sickle cell is the most common genetic disorder in this country. And what sickle cell disease is, it changes the blood cells. So they're usually round, but they turn into like sickle shape. And that manifests itself as when it's going through your bloodstream, if you have a sickle cell crisis, intense pain. So more pain than most human beings can imagine. Many women who have sickle cell don't realise they're actually in childbirth because the pain from sickle cell is far worse than childbirth. Also, it can result in multiple organ failures. Blood donations are absolutely key for the sickle cell community, so if you're on blood transfusions, you will need one every fortnight. One person, he needs 96 people to give blood a year just to stay alive. Why blood donations is so important within our communities is that often the blood type is quite rare, and what we try and do is ethnically match blood types up.
So the well-known blood group is ABO, which is just one blood group, but there are actually over 300 blood groups that we know of. O is considered universal. You should transfuse O negative blood in an emergency situation. So things like major hemorrhage, where the patient's bleeding out and you need to quickly replace the blood. But when you have more elective transfusions, so for patients who might have cancer or for sickle cell patients who are dependent on transfusions and require multiple transfusions, O negative wouldn't be the first choice.
Matching the right blood type is then vital for many people, including sickle cell patients. So the question is, what happens when there are only 2 other people in the UK with your blood type? That's the case for sufferers of the Bombay blood type, a type so rare that only 1 in a million people in Europe have it. Ashley Toy, Professor of Cell Biology at the University of Bristol, has accomplished a world first and grown his own blood.
We take whole blood from a donor, and then effectively we process the blood and pull out the stem cells using magnetic beads with antibodies on. And then those stem cells get put in a nutrient solution. So it's basically media with all the goodies that make the stem cell want to become a red blood cell. And then it takes around about 3 weeks and the cells proliferate. And we go from around about 500,000 cells from the sort of average donor. And those cells grow up, and then we make about 50 billion. And then we use that as the IMPD, the medicine that we put in the people.
So could lab-grown blood ever replace traditional blood donation?
Normal donation works really well. And the issue is we just don't have enough donors, especially of rare blood types. And so the idea here is that we can't replace. We need to have cities of places producing blood. It's just unfeasible. But rare blood, so blood that people need either because they have a rare blood group, or if they have, for example, if you have sickle cell disease, there's always a tiny chance that you get a reaction to the other person's blood, especially if it's multiple units of blood. So initially, at the moment, the idea is we find the really rare blood donors, their blood goes in as a normal donation, but it would be great if we could extract out the stem cells, which normally would be a waste product, and grow that up into more blood. And that's the sort of concept that we're doing at the moment. But it's not, if you take it out of somebody's arm, it costs NHSBT around about £130, £140 to do that. Whereas growing blood is more expensive. I won't tell you how much. But hopefully in future, as things become more efficient and you can drive down your costs, it becomes more accessible. But it will never be to replace blood donors. So that's a really key thing. It's and if anything, we just need more rare blood donors, from all different ethnicities, because that then gives us more options for people who are in hospitals. It's kind of fascinating. People are mini laboratories walking around with different changes that we don't know about until something happens to them. For example, if they have an accident or they need a blood donation or whatever. So it's fascinating to find the differences between people. I love working on it. People in my lab probably think I'm blood obsessed, but I think growing blood is cool. So I'll keep doing it.
For those who are in desperate need of blood and have rare blood types, the consequences of this trial could be life-changing. However, as Ashley says, this is not a replacement for blood donation.
So the plaster is going to be there for 6 hours. The rod can be taken off after half an hour, right? You have to drink a lot of fluid.
I've just finished donating my blood and it took around 7 minutes, which is incidentally just about as long as you've been listening to this segment. In the time you've been listening, you could have donated too, and who knows, maybe even saved a life.
If you find, okay, I'll bring your chair down, we go to the tea, alright?
That was Tara Ina McDermott reporting on the possibilities of lab-grown blood. Wow. After this next song, we're going to have a very special guest on to talk about the Year of the Rabbit. But first, here's the tall Welshman Thomas Burns Scully with Rocket Ship.
Look down at the streets that were your home, at the house where you dreamed your dreams alone, at the bed where you practiced your guitar, never knowing just how far you would go. And I don't know what's coming next for you. The shuttle you built on broken ground, with Lego bricks lost in places no one ever found. Bad dreams and purple stuff, a cup full of figurines. It was never enough. Late night static on the radio, get it up early for video games. You don't know where it's gonna take you, So when the world's blowing up, you gotta give it the slip, know what to do. Oh yes, you build a rocket ship. 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 at you to come home. There was no one thing to do with you and your rocket ship crew. Rocket ship crew of one, and there's to take another ride on this eternity inside. 'Cause there's no way you can ever go home. Yes, there's no way you can ever go home. Oh no, I'm having too much fun in my solar-powered home. Faster than light, burning my way through the night. The one thing I ever got right, the thing that makes me cooler than hip. Space's greatest quantum trip. I'm straight out of a comic strip. I've got a rocket ship. 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 Then maybe someday, now a million light years away, you'll be back on where you were from. To the dust of the sand, all the cuts on your hands, all the things that touch you below. Oh, when you're flying up there in the tangerine air, black hole in your rear view screen. You'll look round and stare, the solar wind in your hair, and you still don't know what none of it means as you fly in your rocket ship. You got a rocket ship. You got a rocket ship. You got a rocket ship.
I went on 2 dates with Thomas, and then he met someone else, and now we're just good friends. My birthday is the 3rd of June, and his is the 2nd of June, which is the only reason he was able to out-Gemini me in such a fashion. Anyway, happy Valentine's Day. What were we talking about? Geminis, constellations. Oh yes, that's right. We're going to talk about the Lunar New Year. Enough of this Western astrology. We're going east with our special guest, Sharon Wu. Thank you for being here, Sharon.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, let's talk about the Lunar New Year. Where are you from in China?
Yeah, I'm from Shanghai. It is in the southeast part of China. And in China, we call it Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year or even Spring Festival. That's a time that we look forward to spring after a long winter. And it is one of the most important traditional holidays in China.
Wow. So, what would you say is your favorite part of Lunar New Year?
Well, actually, the Lunar New Year is quite a long celebration that may last more than 15 days. So, there are basically 4 important timings, calling the New Year's Eve, the first day, the 5th day, and the 15th day of the first month. And I appreciate the Lantern Festival the best, and I can talk a bit about it to you.
Yes, please. It sounds beautiful.
So there is a beautiful poem about it. I can translate it into English with you, and it is: Night lights 1,000 trees in bloom, a shower of stars blown by the east wind. Ornate carriages drawn by gallant horses, filled with boulevards with a sweet fragrance, voice of the magic flute flowing, lustre of jade, white unturning, and all night the fishes and the dragons danced. So you can get almost every custom in this poem about what we are going to do in London Festival. So on this day, many people will choose to go out to the temple fair to enjoy the last atmosphere of the New Year celebration. For example, we'll hang lanterns on the branches of the trees, so they will just like the stars shining in the night. And we'll also have our portable lantern, and with them we'll go shopping on the streets. And in some places there will also be dragon and lion dances. It's like people holding a big lion doll or something like that, and many people will perform us together. It's like a huge performance. So these performances are believed to bring good luck and prosperity. And back at home, we'll eat a round, glutinous rice snack called tangyuan, which signifies completion and success or reunion. So, because it's in the shape of round, and it's also the same in pronunciation in Chinese. So the dishes in Chinese New Year's always related to auspicious symbolisms like the tangyuan, reunion, success, or something like a good New Year.
Wow. That sounds so... That poem especially is so magical. That all sounds so fun. You mentioned you had some friends from different parts of China and that they all had totally different traditions. Could you share some of those? Because I'm very intrigued.
So basically the biggest difference is that in the north part of China, people ate dumplings. That's like the shape of a... what should I say? The money in Song Dynasty, and it's the same pronunciation of the money called 饺子. And in Song Dynasty, the money was called 饺子. So they ate dumpling to look for better fortune and money. They can earn more money in the new year. But in the south part, we'll eat tangyuan that I mentioned we'll have in Lantern Festival. And it is something we look for, the family reunion, that we will never separate from our family. And I got something really interesting that in the south part of China called Yunnan, it's written in cloud and south. And people there cook 长菜, which means a long piece of vegetable. So it seems a little dark, but they will not cut it, and they'll just throw them into something like a hot pot, and they'll cook it for almost 3 days before it is totally eaten. So my friend told me that her family will eat it for about 3 days, and if they cannot finish it, they'll just keep eating and add new vegetables into it. It's something that I never heard in Shanghai. And in the middle part of China, there is a ethnicity called 土家族. It's something like a minority, and they will celebrate Chinese New Year the day before the usual day we celebrate it. And they make patties, which are made by putting glutinous rice together in a large stone mortar, and they'll just, what do you say like this? Like use a mallet to tap it.
Yes.
And the mallet will be a half man's height and weight about 20 pounds.
Whoa.
So it's a big stuff to use.
It sounds big. It sounds massive.
Yes. And this is what they do. And it is interesting that in the New Year of Japan, in Japan, they also do something like that. It's a tradition also just not only in China, but also in Japan and other South Asia countries. And one thing they will do is also in Tujia is to kill pigs and to smoke bacon. So they cannot put the food fresh because they didn't have the refrigerator. So smoke them, and so that they could stay maybe 3 months so they could survive the harsh winter. And another thing I found really interesting is that in Inner Mongolia, that is in the north part of China, that my friend told me they'll build a bonfire. It's quite different from the London one. And they will call the bonfire called Wanghuo. That means it will burn really large. And the fire is lit on New Year's Eve, and everyone will circle around it and dance and sing, so that they think that dancing together will make them feel like a reunion, and they believe that doing this, the new year will be very prosperous. Yeah.
Prosperous. Wow. Well, that's incredible. So, okay, when my flat complex, student flat complex, was celebrating Chinese New Year,
Yes.
they had this big bowl with all these candies in it that I hadn't heard of before. So, are there special Lunar New Year candies? And if so, which one's your favorite?
Candy? Oh, yeah, we have it. We usually have it to, peanuts and candies. We'll put it into plates to just for the relatives and for the children to come, that they will not ruin my life, ruin my rooms. And we had the peanut one and the white rabbit one, which come from Shanghai. I love it best because it's not that sweet and tastes like the milk. And besides the candies, I would like to introduce a dish that usually appear on the table in Chinese New Year. It is something like the fish. So fish, I did a study of the totem of fish in China and Japan, that fish in China is the same pronunciation with something like we could have till the next year. So that it means that we have enough food to survive the next year.
Oh, wow.
And also maybe in ancient times, people also believe that having more children is something like a happiness, although it is different these days.
Okay.
So fish is quite productive and fertile. They can have a lot of children at the same time.
They reproduce fast. Yes.
Yes.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. My other question was, in terms of Chinese folklore,
yes,
what did they say about people born in the year of the rabbit?
Okay, there is not something like... Well, I will say that the answer I got from ChatGPT. It's like Conway, that people born in that year are kind-hearted, peaceful, there might be good listeners, and more family-oriented.
Oh.
But actually, in my point of view, when I meet my friends born in that year, they might not be that kind or good listener.
That's very honest, for sure.
Yeah, people have different characteristics, and it's not totally based on which year they're born. It's more about their education, their family, and how they treat their friends.
Well, that's a really wonderful answer. Thank you so much for being here, Sharon. That was really incredible, and it was great to learn. So after this next song, we have another pretty superb package coming your way from the class of SMP 23. But in the meantime, here's Lizzie Paul with Splatters.
Splatters on the shiny wooden surface. Remind me I have landed in a furnace. Burning paper, yellow smells uncertain. Oh, beauty, keep me far away from the curtain. I can see my shadow, so I know I'm showing through. I'm still shivering at what you thought that you could do, and I can't feel my light slipping away. I can't feel my light. Honey, I'm blank.
one angsty, the voice of an angel. Now, couples just love Valentine's Day, but for me, when I'm single, Valentine's Day is just endless nagging from my family. When are you gonna meet someone? When are you gonna settle down? And you know what it gives me? A migraine. Now, we all probably know someone who suffers from migraines, but if you're lucky enough not to have them yourself, it can be difficult to know just what it's like. In the UK, we lose 250 million days of work per year due to migraines. It's a truly debilitating neurological condition and is often dismissed. If you suffer from migraines or have any audio sensitivities, be aware that this upcoming report contains reconstructions of some of the effects of migraines. Our science reporter, Coral Billingham, has been speaking to the experts and people who suffer from the condition.
The worst migraine attack I've had was a Friday night at Gatwick Airport. I think it was the really bright artificial lighting. And I had a really stressful day at work and I had caffeine. I think all those things combined just set me off. But I got really, really bad aura, so I couldn't see properly out of my left eye. And if I held my hand up to the side of my eye, I just couldn't see my hand. I just totally lost my peripheral vision, which was actually really quite scary because I'd not had that before. And I thought I might be having a stroke. I was there with my boyfriend at the time and I was very close to getting him to go find a paramedic or something. The aura went away and then I just got a really, really severe headache, which was really painful. Made it onto the plane and then just kind of passed out asleep. But towards the end of the flight, I was really, really sick, which was horrible. And then I remember after the flight, just feeling like I was going to collapse. I just had a headache the whole time, felt really kind of exhausted and weird. And to be honest, it did just kind of ruin the weekend for me, as migraine attacks often do.
That's Rachel Baxter. She has suffered from migraine for many years, and now she works for the Migraine Trust as a communications officer raising awareness. But what is the science behind migraine? At King's College London, Professor Peter Goadsby is researching the mechanisms behind headache disorders.
So migraine is a syndrome. It's not just one thing, but it's this collection of really disabling symptoms that make it very difficult for the migraine to function. The core part of the attack, if I could say it that way, or the pain part, will be very often severe, very often throbbing, one-sided pain associated with nausea, so sometimes with vomiting, certainly with light and sound sensitivity, photophobia and phonophobia, and many sensitivity of smells, and particularly an effect where movement, ordinary movement, makes the pain worse.
Now, it's hard to imagine what migraine must be like if we haven't experienced one. Let's listen to a normal London street as if you were suffering from the audio-sensitive or phonophobic aspects of an attack. And that's just one of the many symptoms migraineurs endure. But there are charities out there like the Migraine Trust to support sufferers. One thing they're trying to do is change the perception of migraine through awareness weeks. Here's Rachel Baxter again.
This year we did one focusing on migraine in children and young people and the issues faced by them.
So is there a lot of work to be done, especially in education, surrounding migraine? Is there any awareness at the minute of migraine in schools? Does that need to change?
So we hear from a lot of parents of children who struggle with migraine at school, whose teachers aren't particularly understanding. There's a real lack of awareness in some schools. A lot of teachers get training on certain health conditions like autism and epilepsy and asthma and things like that, but there's generally not really anything to do with migraine.
Without enough support from teachers and schools, teens suffering with migraine and their parents are turning to social media to find out more. Jake Kelly, Digital Officer at the Migraine Trust, is trying to make sure their advice is accessible to all.
So me and the other communications officer, Rachel, we look at social media in two different ways, I think. One is our main social media channels, that would be Facebook and Twitter, where we try to incorporate what we post on social media as a way to help us reach my goals, be that more visitors. We want to then look at reducing our bounce rate. So we try to use social media to really boost the pages we see as not performing well. But we also use it to inform future web pages, blogs, for example. But then we've got the likes of Instagram and TikTok are such a good way for us to reach out to the younger audience. We see from analytics that they're not the ones visiting our websites. So once we reach them, hopefully through those channels, we will hopefully see the numbers increase.
Now, if I just search in TikTok for migraine support, yeah, lots of their videos. And if I just have a quick scroll through,
I'm not being overdramatic when I say that I would rather sit naked on a hot grill than wear something off the rack.
What's your drink of choice?
A Negroni.
I was going to say the same thing.
Magliato.
Mmm.
With Prosecco in it.
Oh, stunning.
Yeah.
yeah, there's some really good ones in here. I can see how this is effective for a younger audience, but there's also lots of helpful hints about treatment options, especially new ones like CGRP. Back at King's College, Peter has been working on this new drug.
Calcitonin gene-related peptide, or CGRP to its friends, is important in the migraine attack, and if you block it or block its effects, then you can stop attacks and you can prevent attacks. They're remarkably useful and remarkably well tolerated. No one with migraine should feel abandoned or should feel that there's nothing that can be done. Literally, the options for treatment are changing year upon year. And if everything has failed you, even when you hear this, chances are in 2023 there'll be things that you haven't tried. So an important message is don't give up.
Oof, wow, that was realistic. Thankfully, we have more songs from one of my besties, Lizzie Paul, to soothe the brain, and afterward, we are lucky enough to have Coral in the studio with us today to answer a couple of questions. Here's Dublin.
I should say, even though it's past my expiration date, for a love that should have faded by now, you should know it's as though I'm still the only one awake. Bracelets missing from my windowsill. I'm afraid, 'cause I don't want to break something I can't replace. I could never cry for anyone until now. You let go of my hand and left me wasted on a staircase. I was tangled up and saw your eyes holding me down. You're on my mind
Again, the dulcet tones of Lizzie Paul. Anyway, we have Coral in the studio today, so I can ask her some questions about the process of putting that package together. So, hi, Coral.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
So, my first question is, why did you want to research migraines specifically?
Well, it's a really horrible disorder, but it's also really, really misunderstood, and it's something that has impacted, my friends, my colleagues. My brother suffers from migraines, and it's really hard because they just get told, oh, it's just a silly headache, and it's just not. It's awful process that can have, days in the run up, and then the main sort of body of the migraine can be 24, 48 hours, and then you've got like a hangover for a week from it, and it's just felt like it would be a fun opportunity to give it a little bit of airtime, but also quite creative because it's quite auditory. So yeah.
Very, very immersive. So that one guy said that you should expect more ways to deal with migraines in 2023. Are you aware of any?
Yeah, so there's some like gene-related stuff. So it will target the things that trigger the migraines. So it's more of a preventative measure. So the idea is that you would take that, and instead of it being medication that's used to treat other things like high blood pressure, for example, that people get prescribed things like beta blockers, this would be a targeted migraine drug that would actually stop the hormones and chemicals that trigger migraines, and it would stop your body producing them so you don't have the migraine at all, instead of just trying to manage the symptoms and still have a migraine. So yeah, it should be good.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming in today, and that was a wonderful package. And thank you all at home for listening. Good morning to all my friends listening from the US. It's been a great show. Have a good rest of your day.